Hello. This afternoon's webinar is Working with Competencies in Totara. My name is Dr. Tammy Frame. I'm the Chief Education Officer of eClass for Learning, and this is my contact information. If you signed up for this webinar today, you will receive a link to the recording, as well as some links to some upcoming webinars and my contact information. So thanks for joining us. eClass for Learning is a full solution open source e-learning provider. We provide LMS solutions such as Totara and are proud to be a Totara Gold partner. We do course development as well as can resell courses that are already made. We do our own onboarding and support. We have access to advanced reporting and analytics, although a lot of times with Totara, you'll find that the report builder, that's not necessary. We can help set up e-commerce solutions. We host our solutions. We can integrate our solutions with other systems in your ecosystem, and we can customize the theme or functionality within the platform as well. All right, today we're using Zoom, and if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And I like questions because it makes it more interactive. If you are viewing this at a later time, feel free to send questions that you might have through an email. All right, so now I'm going to hop to a blank new instance of Totara 17. We also have Totara Perform enabled here. The first part of the demo will talk about competencies you can do and learn. And the last two things we'll talk about are only available in Perform. So this is an out-of-the-box instance with very little customization done to it or configuration. And let's just hop right into it. So when you're a site administrator, you can go up to the site admin gear, and you're going to go to Core Platform and Competencies. Okay, I recommend that you start with your competency scales. And that's important because later after competencies are assigned, you can't change the scale very much. You might be able to change what's considered proficient, but once those are assigned, it's a little like a quiz. It's going to be difficult to change to a framework. So I feel like scales are the best place to start. So let's just add a new competency scale to start out with. So I will call this Tammy's test scale. Now notice here, this is important too. You're going to put the scale values, one per line, and it says from most competent to least, and that's important. And anything in Totara that has a red asterisk is required, so we have to put something here, expert. Let's see, expert, master, intermediate, basic, needs review, something like that. And then if you want to write a description, you're welcome to do that. But notice that it doesn't have a red asterisk, so it's not required. And you can save your changes. Now, the next thing is we have to define some things. So first of all, what do you want when people are rating or looking at these to be the default? So I'm going to go with intermediate, that it'll be set on, and then they need to change it from there. And then what is the minimum required proficiency value? So right now, notice that only expert says yes. But if I would say master and expert, and then I save this, now you'll notice that these two are proficient and these three are not. Um, Sometimes you might have multiple scales. Let's say you have different grade levels or pay grades, and a lower pay grade, maybe basic or intermediate is okay. And then at a later pay grade, maybe only expert is okay. So you could have multiple scales for multiple pay grades that can then be applied to what we're going to call next is the frameworks. Okay, so when we go here, we'll go back to all competency scales. And notice the scales are on the bottom. And now we have frameworks. And frameworks are like categories of competencies. So maybe in my example, we have a GS9 and a GS15 competency. So I'll add a new framework. And this is not the competencies yet. This is just how they're grouped. And you can have as many groups of competencies that you want. And then the ID number is not required, but it is important, and you will need one if you're going to do a CSV upload of a whole bunch of competencies. So I'm going to just put G229 here for mine. And again, you can put a description if you want to, but it's not required. Now, this part is important. We need to decide what scale is going with the competencies. So we'll do the one that I just created, and that will be all of the competencies that will be part of this framework will then use this scale, okay? So that's important to note. And that's why I think it's good to start with the scales first. Okay, now that we have our framework, we're ready to add our actual competencies. So first I'll do it manually, and then I'll talk about how it can be done with a CSV upload. So bulk actions, you go to and you click add. And you can decide, you can have a hierarchical. So you could have a top competency, and then you could have sub competencies. So let's start with the top one, and I will call this one, let's see, what could we do? Let's do innovative. And then it's already says here what the test scale is going to be. And then from here, let's do multitasking. And let's do persistent. Okay. And then you can decide non-admin assignment ability. So if others can, like if you want users to self-assign competencies to themselves, or you could pick users who may assign to others, okay? I'm just gonna leave it as admin for today. And let's just look at this. So now we can see our three competencies. Now it looks like there's an error because it says achievement paths need review. So when you have perform, you can define several ways that people can achieve the competency. And that's really cool because it can be personalized, there can be choices, there can be different paths, or there could be an assigned way where, let's say, maybe you need to take a course and then you need to have it rated by a manager. So you can have different workflows like that. We aren't going to get into that piece today. There's a future webinar coming up where we are going to cover that more in depth. And I felt like that's a topic that can have its own webinar because there's quite a bit to that. So for now, we're just going to get the competencies in, and we'll work on the achievement paths at our next webinar, okay? So right now I see that I have these three. Let's say I want to make persistent a sub-competency of innovative. What I can do here is I can go from top to, let's go to innovative here, and this will be a sub-competency here. And then we'll see how that changes. Okay, so it's telling me I haven't linked any courses, and you can link competencies to a course or to learning. We're going to cover that in the achievement paths as well. But let's go back to the competencies in this framework. So now we see innovative and persistent, and then multitasking. Now, one thing is if you are going to have competencies rated by someone, you might want to have some numbers in front of this, because what will happen is competencies when rated won't show up in the order that you entered them. They will show up alphabetically by default. So you can kind of control that if you wanted the competencies together. So we could say G29 innovative, and then we could go back to my competencies. And now we could say G. Okay, so now we could call this one G29.1 persistent. And we'll go back. And now go here. G29.2 multitasking. And then we can go back and look at our competencies. And now these will show up in the order that we entered them when people are rating them. So that's a little bit of a tip on how to control that. Okay, now let's say you have many competencies and you don't want to manually do these. Then what we can do is we can bulk upload them. Now you might think, where would I do that, or bulk actions here? But actually it's under HR import. So you have to head up to the site admin, go to HR import. Okay, if you're new to HR import, there are elements that can be turned on and off of things that you might want to upload. I suggest, to make it easier, to turn all of them off except the one that you're working on. So I have the eye open for competency. I'm going to just peek at my settings. We're going to go to CSV, and I'm going to leave that as the default to upload files. I'm going to allow my upload to create, update, or delete. And I'm not going to schedule this. All right. So now, when I've set those settings, I can go under here and look at the CSV. And what I like here is that it tells you what the default columns should say. So you're going to need an ID number, a full name, a deleted, a framework ID number, and a time modified. And I will show you some tricks there. You could also add description or parent or a type or a short name if you wanted to, or when it was created. When you click Save Changes, let's just look at that. Now it's going to say ID number, full name, deleted, description, which is new, parent ID number. Okay, so let me bring up my spreadsheet, or my CSV, I should say, because it has to be a CSV. And I have these already in my CSV. So you can come up with an ID number for your competency, then the name for your competency. Deleted you would put to 0, and a 1 if you are in fact deleting it, but I'm adding it, so a 0 has to go there. Your framework ID number has to match whatever the framework ID number is that you set up before. And you will get an error if you put in something that doesn't exist. This is to a different framework that I have on here. If I wanted this to be a sub-competency, I would need the ID number of the top competency that this one should be under. You can put a Unix timestamp on time, but you can also put 0, and that's a little shortcut. And then I've got my description here. When you save, make sure you're saving it as a CSV, which I've done. Okay. And then we're ready to go to the races and upload the file. So we go over here, choose my file, find it. I'm going to go with this CSV. I'm going to upload it. I'll overwrite it because I was practicing right before the webinar. Okay, and it says it's uploaded successfully, but that just means that it took the CSV. You haven't yet run the HR import. So you have to jump back over here and run the HR import, and we're set to run it. And it says that it went successfully. So that's great. If there are errors, you can check the logs and it will tell you with this link what the problem was. So for example, if you put in a framework ID number that doesn't exist in the system, it will tell you that. So that's how you can upload competencies through the HR import. So now let's talk about how we might assign competencies. Now, in real life, if you're using Totara Perform, we would probably, even before we assign them, want to do the achievement paths. But because that's a larger topic, we will do that in a separate webinar. Right. So we are now going to head over these next parts. You can only mass assign in Totara Perform. So you need Totara Perform to do that. We're going to go to Site Admin and Competencies again. Then on the submenu over here, you will see Create Assignments. Okay, so what we can do is we can sort by a framework if we want to. So if I wanted to go to the one that we set up, if I click this, we can select them all. Notice there's a little arrow here. That is for that sub-competency would be underneath here. Okay. I also could go back. Let's just do this again. Create assignments. And let's go to my framework. Notice I could do all the children in the competency. Now there are 3 items, and that would be great. So then I can go to assign and assign user groups. You could do audiences, positions, organizations, or individual users. And I love this, that like everybody in a position could get these competencies assigned, for example. I will do individual user because I don't know if I have any positions on this test site. I will assign these competencies to these groups of people, and I will save the changes. Okay, now It looks like I'm done, but I'm not. I also need to hit create assignments and activate assignments on creation, and yes. Okay. Now, it tells me what um, each competency, it's sort of an embedded report, and who has been assigned, and that it's an active competency. Okay. And then I can toggle here. So if I wanted to see individual, if there's any audiences, and so on. So I can kind of look at that report from a variety of perspectives. Now, let's go to a user and see how this appears to them. So when you have perform, I'm going to go to test 2. There will be a report called competency profile that the user can go to. And that's part of their profile. And first of all is this neat donut graph that says how many are directly assigned. Now notice it does take a minute or two, so maybe not all the competencies I just added are there because it's got to run through a cron job. And then it makes a neat spider graph. So this tells me what is proficient, the level of proficiency, and any that I have achieved so far. And this can look different as more and more competencies and achievement gets done. All right, now, after we go through achievement paths, let's say that the manager could rate this. And if you were logged in as that person's manager, there would be a rate competency. Remember before too, if we said that any competencies could be self-assigned, they would see that. Or if you're in as the admin or the manager, you can also assign competencies from here. Okay, so I could go like this, and it might be that this person already has all of these. Yeah, so they already have all of them. Okay. If you are the manager and you go to team under develop, you will also be able to see anybody's competency profile that way as well. Hey, so I will check and see if there's any questions. I don't see any right now. And that wraps up our webinar today on how to work with competencies in Totara. Be looking for our next webinar, which I will send the link, and I will send our upcoming webinars on how to work with achievement paths. And that'll be a pretty exciting one too, where you can really start to put workflows now that the competencies and the frameworks and the scales are in. So thanks so much.